Welcome to the Our Lads Football Network on the Our Lads Football YouTube channel. Greg DePalma here with Associate General Manager of OurLads.com, Jon Cooper. How's it going, John?
Hey, real good. How's it going with you?
It's going good. I'm enjoying interviewing a lot of our contacts from every NFL team after the draft. It's nice to get an education from the insiders who know what's happening, and that's kind of like we're getting together here because I'll be actually interviewing Alex Kozora tomorrow about the Steelers, and I look forward to getting the opportunity to kind of splice this together along with the interview, as well as our interview that we have set up with Tony Lombardi from the Ravens. We were going to do that earlier today. We had to reschedule that, but we'll hook that up with this one as well because we're going to be talking about the Ravens draft class also a little bit later on. Hayden Russell, by the way, we're waiting to get his reports from the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals. So kind of an AFC North week here on the channel. And that's what we're going to kick off here with the Pittsburgh Steelers and talk about their draft. And overall, I think the thing that sticks out more than anything is not exactly who they picked, but who they didn't pick early. But they waited until round 6 to get Will Howard as their top pick at quarterback. So I thought that was one of the bargains of the draft to be able to get Will Howard in round 6 in a perfect situation where even if Aaron Rodgers, which it's looking more than likely that he's going to be the quarterback in 2025, that Will Howard could still be a good chance, good shot at starting in 2026.
Yeah, right. I mean, it was a good pick. I think we like Will Howard. I think the thing with him is, when he transferred to Ohio State, it took him a while to kind of get used to his shoes, so to speak, in the Ohio State offense. But that last half of the season and that playoff run, he was terrific. I mean, he looked like a first-round pick, a good percentage of the time. He's got some inconsistency, but he does a lot of things well. He can make the throws. He's strong. He's a physical kid. He can create with his feet, and he's a generally accurate passer. Outside the numbers, which is the thing I always look at. And he was just terrific for Ohio State. And now, which Will Howard are we looking at? Are we looking at that Will Howard or the Will Howard, prior, and maybe even early in the season? But I think it's a safe bet that he's got a very good developmental chance with the Steelers, particularly since it's likely he will sit for a year and get a chance to learn from a veteran quarterback who's very talented.
Yeah, and the thing that is interesting about his trajectory is that he gets the shot that he was very fortunate to get when Skylar Thompson went down.
Right.
And then he actually also got a shot when Martinez was there, and that really elevated his opportunity. And then it took a little while, but he left Kansas State in a great place, championship win, undefeated TCU that went on to the playoffs, and then all of a sudden goes to Ohio State. And the funny thing is, John, is if his regular season, if this was the old system, college system, and his regular season ended with the loss to Michigan, and he did not get the opportunity to go to the playoffs, I'm thinking we're thinking a little bit different about him, just a little bit different because of how well he played in the postseason.
Yeah, definitely that elevated his status in a lot of minds. But the funny thing is, he still lasted, quite until his 6th round.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
That's and that may be more what his trajectory, really was, besides the hype. But the bottom line is, like I've said many times, there's 2 drafts. There's the regular player draft. There's the quarterback draft. If you don't need a quarterback, you're not going to take one. So it's not like other positions where chances are a team is going to draft every position just about in the draft just for depth purposes. A quarterback, that's not the case. So, he may have had 3rd round value, 4th round value in our mind, but there wasn't a need for anybody to take him, and they had other needs that were more pressing. It was a little surprising that Pittsburgh waited as long as they did, but I think they got a good prospect.
Got lucky.
Howard.
Yeah, and it might have just been the luckiest team to get him there. So, what is the one thing though that he needs to do in order to take that next step, which is why he lasted until round 6? I know there was a lot of talk about the combine, and that was like the beginning of a lot of people believing that well, maybe he was going to slip more than people thought. Nobody ever expected the 6th round. But what's like kind of lacking as far as some of the scouts and why they don't think that he should have been drafted higher?
Consistency is the biggest thing. He's shown that he can do it, but he's also shown bouts of inaccuracy and indecisiveness. So as long as, he gets consistent in those areas, he's got a chance. You got to understand, Ohio State had a great offense, a great football team to play with. So, he grew up with that team. As that team got better and, they were on a roll, he grew with that team. He had some good receivers, good running backs. I mean, Howard did not have to carry Ohio State. And that's another thing people are looking at. Is he the quarterback that can carry, or is he the guy that, is along for the ride and that can, is a good fundamentally sound player who's not going to make a lot of mistakes? That said, there are some things he's got to clean up, as far as that goes. His mechanics are flashes of very good fundamentals, good mechanics. So this is a good player, but there are, like he has moments where he doesn't always on task in terms of doing the right things.
And he happened to actually have his most consistent run during each of those playoff games, which again is what just made at least me, and I know you and others, just go, wow. I mean, if he could do this, we watch out. Okay.
Well, we've seen that in other guys too, that they've, really risen to the occasion. We've seen in guys in the NFL that have played in a role have streaks of great play, but, longevity is a key. Can you do it over a long period of time?
Yeah, matter of fact, they had one of their own quarterbacks. What was it? Was it Caleb Jones? Was it? Who was it? The one that won the championship for the Buckeyes when they were the big dogs that year. Man, I can't remember his name. Anyway, Cardell Jones.
I think it was Justin Fields.
No, Cardell Jones. Yeah. And in Cardell, he had that big body, and he comes in. Nobody thought that he was going to be anything special. And then, of course, they win the championship. He actually got drafted. Didn't he get drafted? He got drafted higher than Will Howard, didn't he? I believe he did.
That one I don't remember that well.
Yeah, I believe he did.
I think Cordell Stewart.
Yeah, no, that's a different one.
We're going way back.
Speaking of the Steelers. Okay, so let's look on offense because their third round pick, their first pick on offense actually went to Caleb Johnson from Iowa. And this is the perfect Steeler back, between the tackles, tough-nosed runner. And they're changing things, of course, in the backfield with Harris gone. They still have Warren, but now Johnson is going to be I guess, Batman to Robin kind of deal there at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's a solid player. Like I say, he's a good hard runner. He will challenge defensive players, will try to tackle him. He will get yards after contact. He's a tough kid. He's got a little bit more athletic ability than you might think. He can turn the corner on the edge. He's got a little bit of agility in traffic. He's not just a power back. And he's got good hands. He can catch the ball out of the backfield too. So this is a kid that, is going to be a workman-like back that should be solid.
And do you think, because right now Tucker has him ahead on the depth chart, even though he's a rookie, we know Jaylen Warren can produce if he stays healthy. What do you think about that? Because Warren. Do you think that when it's all said and done, if Johnson lives up to his potential as a rookie, do you think by the end of the season he's going to be the number one back?
I think it'll be by committee, like
Split.
Most NFL teams are. Who gets the most carries depends on who's the most productive.
Yep. Okay. Let's move on to another one of their picks on offense and talk about. Actually, they didn't have any more picks on offense. We're going to start with their first round pick on defense, Derek Harmon. I know there was a lot of talk about injury situations with Harmon, and is that why he slid a little bit further down the depth chart? I mean, the draft charts. Anyway, he's a very talented player. Pittsburgh needed to get really tough in the middle. This was not a surprise. They went in the middle of the defense. The run defense was a major issue for them last season.
Yeah, Harmon is a solid player. He can also rush the passer from the inside too. He's a classic 3 technique. There's some question of how he fits with Pittsburgh's defense. They can play him as a 5, I'm sure, on rundowns, and play him in 3 in their nickel package. They'll move him around. In fact, they use a lot of a kick down look in their defense too. So he will probably be primarily a 3 technique, and he'll get a nice push in the pass rush, as well as being very good against the run. Excellent lateral movement, powerful, good first step, makes a lot of tackles in line, and he's got a little bit of pass. He's got some pass rush. He's a decent inside pass rusher. Nice player.
Also on defense, let's stick with the defensive line, because Black out of Iowa winds up going in round 5. And I know there was a lot early on in the process. There was talk about, this is going to be a nice, pick. I mean, a nice, projected prospect, a big guy, looks like he's immovable at some times. But then all of a sudden in the process of taking a look at him after the season, there was some question about, bad workouts and things of that nature. Could he even end up not even being drafted? Well, Steelers sure liked him, picked him in round 5.
Yeah, that was a little high for us, as far as that goes. I mean, he's a tough run stuffer type guy. He's not a great athlete. They list him as a defensive end. That would be as a 5 technique, I'm sure, 4 technique, in their scheme, but primarily an interior defender. I'm surprised I see him listed in all these lists as a defensive end, 336 pounds, more of a nose tackle in our minds.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's where we have him on our depth chart.
Yeah, right. And so that's where I think he's going to play. I think that's he's going to be an interior. He's going to be a 2 gap, 1 gap. He's going to be a guy that is going to take up space. He's going to occupy the defense. He's going to make it easier for linebackers to flow to the football, because he's good enough gap player that you have to account for him, and you're going to have to double team him to keep him out of your backfield. He can move laterally along the line, and he had some pressure on the quarterback as well, and he gets his hands up in the throwing lane. So he's a nice player, but like you said, the workouts and the fact that the defensive linemen in this draft were so strong, we were a little surprised he went in the 5th round. But there was a specific need that Pittsburgh had, and they liked him. And there weren't that many of those huge guys that people liked, because I know some other teams liked him, around then too.
Well, Steelers got to jump on him and grabbed him a little early.
Right.
Okay. In round 4, before they went with Black, they took Jack Sawyer and another Ohio State kid. And again, I think this is a really good value pick where they were able to get Sawyer, because he didn't have like the biggest, flashiest career up until this final season. And boy, did he end his career on a high note from the Michigan game on. In the biggest games, he was coming up with big play after big play. And I think that has to account for something.
This is a great football player in our minds. He's not the greatest athlete in the world. He's not going to wow you with his numbers as far as speed is concerned, or agility or anything like that. He just plays football. He's smart. He's got excellent techniques. There are no holes in his fundamentals. And he makes big plays. He's a try-hard guy if there ever was one. He's got a great motor. He can chase across the field. He can turn it on when he needs to. He accelerates. He takes great angles to the ball in pursuit. He can rush the passer. He's got good technique as far as that goes. He's got a number of moves, great football IQ. He can bull rush into a move, or he can turn the corner coming around the edge. Does he have the best first step? No. Does he have the best speed? No. But he is a football player, and we like him. We think the Steelers got a great pick in the 4th round.
Yeah, it just has Steelers written all over him, doesn't it? All right. And then also on defense in round 7, they added 2 more players. Let's start also at linebacker with Carson Bruner, actually one of the better cover linebackers, underrated cover linebackers of the draft.
Yeah, he just missed, a write-up for us. And it was probably because, he's not the greatest, not the greatest player to run. He's a smart player. He's going to be a great special team player. Besides that, but as you said, he's a very good cover linebacker. He'll fit in sub packages and special teams with the Steelers. He'll have a real good chance to make the team.
And then Dante Kent, were you surprised he lasted till round 7?
No, to be honest with you. We thought he could have gone maybe a little higher. We had I think we had a PFA grade on him, if I'm not mistaken. But he's a speed guy. He's not real big. Tackling is a little bit suspect. One of the things he does well is return kicks, and I think that's part of the reason the Steelers drafted him, because they're going to get a decent kick returner, punt returner as well.
Okay. Yeah, let me see how that holds in here. I guess we don't have that in there yet, but maybe Tucker should put him in there as a punt returner as far as a backup at this point. Before I let you go, I just want to ask you about whether or not any of these drafted free agents stick out. The one that a couple of them do, the obvious one I'm going to get to in a second, but I like Rock Taylor, the receiver from Memphis.
Yep.
I think what I like about it is, doing some research. When I always do research on these guys, the one thing I always look at, and I did it with Seth Hennigan, is I always like to see how they play in the bigger games when they place bigger competition. And he always seemed to come up with some pretty good numbers in that spot. And he seems like a pretty tough kid. And then also you have the kicker, Ben Sauls, had a nice career, and he's hometown kid, but Chris Boswell has been there forever. So that'll be interesting. But of course, the one that sticks out is Sebastian Castro. And it just boggles the mind and how this kid was not even drafted, let alone, nobody would have been surprised here at our lads if he was a 3rd-round draft pick.
Yeah, as time went on, we started to take a little bigger look at Sebastian, and I got all excited about some close to the ball stuff, which is what he does well.
Okay.
He's a little bit of a one-trick pony in terms he's very good box safety. Ask him to play deep, ask him to, do anything more than maybe a little cover 4. He struggles.
Okay.
But Iowa used him very well as an overhang player primarily, and he made a lot of plays against the run and the short passing game. So he's a solid player. He fits Pittsburgh. He'll have a shot to make that team, because Pittsburgh, as long as Tomlin's been there, has had a safety that is a big, physical, tough kid that is a short space type of a player, a box type safety, and that they use in sub packages. So Castro will have a shot, as far as that goes.
It was interesting because I remember the beginning of the season looking at the Iowa defensive backfield. It was like, wow, look at everything they have back here. It's a lot of talent. And I don't know, it just felt that those guys would be a little bit better prospects at the next level. Jamari Harris.
Right. I'm with you. And all those guys
and
ended up being free agents.
Yeah.
Collectively, they were very good. I saw them in person, and I thought this is really a good defense. But, when you start breaking them down individually, you can see they fit well in that scheme. And there's a couple of guys. When we get to the Ravens here, we'll talk about the linebacker Higgins, who who is a kid that athletically isn't anything to write home about, but he's like Sawyer in a lot of ways. He just plays. He just makes plays. He's solid. He's not going to cover backs man to man on the backfield and take him off the field, but he's a very good zone defender, and he's a good run stuffer. So but he's just not real big. He's not real fast. But that's what you need. The next level. So that hurts. Yeah. But he's a football player. So we'll see if he can make a team. And Castro's the same way.
Yep. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to take a timeout because we are going to talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Don't forget to check that out. That combination interview and this draft class report, we're going to combine that. It'll be available here on the Our Football Network in about a week or so. So look out for that. That's why you want to make sure to subscribe to our channel. But for the Pittsburgh Steelers fans out there, you guys get first dibs. So stay tuned here and look out, because what's coming up next is a little excerpt, a little segment from the interview that I did with Alex Kozora of SteelersDepot.com. So for Jon Cooper and Greg DePalma, thanks for tuning in here to the Our Football Network. Now let's take a look at that interview. We are live. Excuse me. Can't start over again. Anyway, we are live on Proline TV for our coverage of the NFL, the offseason in 2025, and an opportunity for us to talk about as many teams as we can, post-draft, post-free agency. Of course, we've got mini camps and rookie camps coming up. There's still some signings going on that will go on before the regular season begins, of course. Most of them have pretty much been done. But this is our opportunity today to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And so Alex Kozora from SteelersDepot.com gets the chance to talk to us today, which we're real happy about. How's it going, Alex?
Hey, Greg, doing well. Appreciate you having me on.
It's great to talk Pittsburgh Steelers. And a very prideful program that has won many Super Bowls, and they've had all these winning seasons, and everybody's wondering whether or not that's starting to slip away. Will that finally come to an end? But this particular draft class, to me, looked pretty impressive. And we're going to get into that in a little bit, Alex. But first of all, a couple of dealings with the roster still going on. And the biggest one, really, I think that's impacting all of the NFL is just one more to go as far as a big name. And where is that big name landing? And that's Aaron Rodgers. Is this a foregone conclusion? Is this just a matter of just waiting until a certain date and time that Aaron Rodgers will be a Pittsburgh Steeler?
I wouldn't say that. That's probably too aggressive to say foregone conclusion. I know we're live, but every time I mention Aaron Rodgers, I feel like I have to hold up a newspaper that says this is as of May 16th, and so anything could change. We are truly waiting on Aaron Rodgers' time and have since March, essentially. The expectation and my personal belief, whatever that's worth, is that Rodgers will eventually sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. When that'll be is a really interesting question. And Greg, I think, to me, there should start to at least be some pressure from the team exerted on Rodgers. OTAs for Pittsburgh begins May 27th. I know they're voluntary, but most of the roster will be there. Mandatory minicamp begins in the middle of June, I believe June 10th. And so to me, those are critical dates for a quarterback. If you want to come in, be the face of the franchise, learn the offense, get chemistry with your teammates, those are really important building blocks in the spring. I know Rodgers has not been crazy about OTAs, but he's no longer the 11th year player in Green Bay where it's old hat. This is all new. And I think it's unfair to the players if they're working, if they have to answer questions about who's the quarterback, is Rodgers coming, which they don't have answers to. And for Rodgers to sit at home and just get to think it over more, I think there's got to be a deadline for him at some point. And that point, I think, is approaching. Will Pittsburgh actually set the deadline? Maybe not, because they have put themselves in a position where it's Rodgers or bust. He is the best option out there. And if he's not coming, they're in even deeper trouble. So maybe they can't do that. But for me, the deadline should be approaching.
Okay. What about is there a reason why a specific, like you pointed out, a date for a reason, but contractually, is there anything stopping him from signing now, or that he needs to sign by a certain date, or he can't walk into the building until when, or no, everything is clean? And if he wants to come and if the Steelers want him and they agree, he could step into the hallway of the Pittsburgh Steelers facility today.
As far as I know, it's the latter. There was nothing contractually holding up. I mean, the report is Pittsburgh had an offer on the table for Rodgers the first week of free agency, which was mid-March. And he talked about in his lone interview he did with the Pat McAfee show that money was not the issue. He said he would play for 10 M's. I'm curious if he actually will play for 10 M's should he sign with Pittsburgh. I don't think he will, but that does not appear to be the issue. I will take him at his word when he says his reason for waiting was his personal life, his personal relationships, his friendships, and wanting to think about his future. And I can understand and give grace to a guy that this is his first time as a free agent, 41 years old, never been a free agent before. And so it's a big decision. And on top of that, it is, do I want to play again? Do I want to make that commitment? And am I ready to put my mind and body into that? But the longer this thing goes along, the more offseason activities he misses, be it OTAs and minicamp, you wonder, is he fully committed? And is that fair to the players? And so we shall see. But again, I think Pittsburgh's in a position where they don't have any other alternative they like. They like Mason Rudolph, but is he going to get them to a playoff win? Probably not. And so Rodgers is the guy. They've waited this long, and they will continue to wait.
Yeah, it's a good time to take a look at the ourlads.com Pittsburgh Steeler depth chart. And of course, you look at that quarterback situation, and there it is. And it's just waiting for somebody to fill that spot where Mason Rudolph currently resides. So we'll see if that happens or not. I think most people would be surprised if Aaron Rodgers was not the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. But hey, I think that really depends on if Aaron Rodgers does want to play. I think that's all it's about. I don't think there's any way Aaron Rodgers is going to decide to play. I'd rather have a losing season with the New Orleans Saints and just end my career, these last several years with the Jets and the Saints, without even attempting to make a playoff run or anything like that. And where I could give myself one really good shot, maybe two, but one really good shot with a well-coached team that always makes the playoffs, or at least is always at least over 500 based on Mike Tomlin's run. So we'll see if that happens. But I think this is also a good opportunity for us to take a look here at the depth chart at that wide receiver spot, because DK Metcalf is all of a sudden now the number one wideout for the Steelers, no longer George Pickens. And when we spoke a couple of months ago, before the offseason opened up with free agency and the draft and all that, you had talked about this was something to keep an eye on, Pickens, whether or not he'd still be around. Well, obviously, he's no longer around. I had the opportunity to talk to RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys a couple of weeks ago from the Dallas perspective. Now I would like your perspective. Let's start, first of all, the Steelers side of things. Was this inevitable? Was this something that when exactly do you think that there might have been the breaking point? Was there a breaking point, or was it just a culmination of things?
I think culmination is the right word, Greg. I think Pittsburgh was truly done with George Pickens, and they've been down this road before. The fate of every difficult, at times malcontent receiver in recent years have ended in trade, be it Chase Claypool, Antonio Brown, Deontay Johnson, et cetera, Martavis Bryant. And so this is not a shocking outcome. The timing was a bit curious post-draft to then have to fill that hole this late into the offseason. But, for all the Pickens talent, there was so much headache, so much frustration, late to games, reportedly multiple times, including the Christmas Day game. That's just stuff that is hard to allow to slip by, even as talented as George Pickens is. And there's a cultural reset I think Pittsburgh is trying to undergo to some extent in that locker room right now. So, Pickett, once the Metcalf trade happened, despite that, Pickens was not going to get re-signed. He was not going to come back on a long-term deal. They were not going to pay him that kind of money if he was going to do those types of things professionally and not be the professional he needed to be. And so he was going to either leave after 2025 and Pittsburgh would hope to get a comp pick for 2027, or Pittsburgh could trade him now and guarantee that pick for 2026. And they chose the latter.
Okay. So when did the fans start to get this bad feeling about Pickens? Like, was it right off the jump? Like, well, we knew what kind of player he was, but we just never really saw it escalate? Or is this something that just happened last season?
You're asking in terms of the lack of professionalism and the antics attitude and that type of stuff?
Yes.
It had always come up really throughout his Steelers tenure, probably more so the past 2 years. Kind of the real first, maybe not the first, but the biggest story was that Colts game in 2023 where Pickens didn't block on the goal line and then made some bad excuses to the press about it afterwards, to the point where Mike Tomlin had to hold a rare Thursday press conference to try to clarify things. That was kind of the first, it was a media story for about a week. And so that's when things really kind of blew up nationally. But this has been something with Pickens for a while. Some people say it's why he dropped in the draft, and maybe it was a component, but he had a torn ACL last year at Georgia. Caught 5 passes. That was the reason why I think he primarily fell to the second round, just because of the injury. But this thing had been on and off. Anytime Pittsburgh had lost, something Pickens became a story. Sometimes it was justified, sometimes it was more media created, but there's certainly validity to the issues that George Pickens had. If you're late for games, this dude racked up so many fines too. 2023 racked up reportedly over $200,000 in fines from NFL and team combined, over about probably $100K from the NFL this past year. So just a lot of stuff going on with George Pickens, and Pittsburgh reached a breaking point and they move on.
Okay, and then as far as the receiving room, again, I mentioned Metcalf. Based on the offense that they run with Arthur Smith, it's not like they really have to worry too much about a deep wide receiver core. That's just not his thing. So do you think that they're okay, or are they kind of down a man that they really need to find that really good number two?
You're right. The Arthur Smith offense is primarily multiple tight end based. They don't use 11 personnel at nearly the rate they used to, or the NFL average, but you still need that starter receiver opposite. This feels very reminiscent to last year when George Pickens was your number one, and the question was, who's your number two opposite after trading Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers, and Pittsburgh never found that guy throughout the season. The offense felt incomplete. Teams could roll coverage with George Pickens, take him away. There was nobody else to adequately take advantage of those one-on-one opportunities. And then when Pickens got hurt late in the season, missed 3 games, the passing offense really tanked. And so you're in a similar situation this year. Now, the team and Omar Khan, the general manager, said they're confident in what they have internally. Calvin Austin, to his credit, broke out last year. Roman Wilson, second season, bunch of injuries rookie year, played all of 5 offensive snaps. So really a clean slate, a lot of unknown with him. They signed Robert Woods, a trusty veteran. You have Metcalf as your new number one. So we'll see. I imagine the team will go through spring work, OTAs, minicamp, see what they have, and then potentially explore outside options if they don't like what they've seen from the current group. But yeah, big time question. I think Pittsburgh has not earned the benefit of the doubt to trust them in the internal receivers because of what happened last year, where the offense felt at least one piece short at receiver.
Yeah, as a Michigan fan, I know Roman Wilson really well. And if the injury is behind him, I don't think there's any doubt that he is going to be an effective football player at this level. What kind of a player is he going to be? How effective? We'll see. I know he doesn't have the biggest size, but I think he's a player. I really do. And he's stepped up in big games, championship player. So I think he's a step up actually over Calvin Austin. Even though, like you said, Calvin Austin has showed that last year that maybe he is a player that can be counted on in some capacity. He's got a little playmaker in him. So I think this could be okay. It's just a matter of players stepping up. That's what it's about. You got to get players to step up in your system who you drafted, and we'll see if they can get that done. And we'll talk more about that when training camp comes around.
Just one really quick note, if I could just add on that. I agree that potentially could happen, but you just don't know. It's hard to be super confident. And then if Rodgers does sign, his track record with young receivers is typically not great because he wants guys to be detailed and buttoned up, and rookies and young guys like Wilson, a de facto rookie, typically don't produce. I think about Corley last year with the Jets, who had 3 catches, I think, as a rookie. So that's an additional concern for me if Rodgers does sign. And
I should ask then, again, as a Jet fan, boo, I'm weak. We're weak. But would that be like a definite move to go ahead and make a trade to get Allen Lazard? Because Jet fans want Allen Lazard out of New York as fast as possible. He just did not work out there. But you saw even at the end of last year when things started going better for Aaron Rodgers, Lazard started to make some plays and it looked like the old Lazard. So is that even possible?
It is. Again, I think Pittsburgh will start internally. They're not going to rush out to make a move. They're going to watch Wilson and Austin, et cetera, through OTAs. But if they don't like what they see, it's easy to connect those dots if Rodgers does sign. And I make the comparison. I'm not a big movie guy, but it feels like every Adam Sandler movie, wherever Aaron Rodgers goes, it's like, here's Rob Schneider and here's Kevin James. They just follow each other wherever Sandler ends up starring. And so it certainly would make sense for Lazard to come to Pittsburgh.
Or his 3 friends that he grew up with that are always in his movies, and you have no idea who they are. But because they're hooked up with Adam Sandler, they're all in they play pivotal roles in all of Adam Sandler's movies.
Exactly.